Okay, well, thank you very much for getting on the call with me this morning, Paul. We're very excited to have you at our event next week. And I just want to ask you a few questions so that we can get our audience familiar with you. So my understanding is you're very passionate about Saskatchewan and you're very big on what's happening in the economy. And so can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to be so knowledgeable about Saskatchewan?
Well, my background is journalism. I've been a journalist in the province for about 40 years, and for the last 30 of that or so, I've been focused on business, so coverage of the business sector. Very few people, I think, have had the platform or the opportunity that I've had to be able to meet business people and to travel to all corners of the province and see what's going on and see what's worked, what's not worked, to test attitudes and to look at confidence levels, these kinds of things. So at one point, I was business editor of the Star Phoenix in Saskatoon, and also was editor of Saskatchewan Business Magazine, had a television program called Saskatchewan Business on the 4 CTV channels in the province. And you may hear me daily on about 15 radio stations around the province. So I still am active in the media, but in the last 20 years or so, I've done less media and more involvement directly in the business community. I'm a chair of an organization called TEC, which stands for the Executive Committee. It's a global organization of for CEO development to enhance the performance of CEOs. So I've been looking after Saskatchewan in that area for about 12 or 15 years. So I guess I got my finger in every corner of it.
You absolutely do. So tell us a little bit about what you see is going on in Saskatchewan.
Well, I'd say the primary driver right now, or the principal thing that we need to look at, is investment levels. For a long, long time, Saskatchewan was an underdeveloped province, and there were many reasons for it, but largely it was resulted in a lack of investment. So we were one of those places that was ripe for growth and development and opportunity. Those who had the wisdom, the foresight to be able to say, this is an undervalued jurisdiction, put money in here 10, 12 years ago, and reap the rewards ever since, because the last decade or so we've seen investment levels triple in Saskatchewan, and that's been the primary driver of what's lifted everything.
Absolutely. Do you see a lot of money coming into the province from outside the country as well?
Absolutely, and I mean, it comes in many forms. I mean, whether we see it as a straight-up investment in, say, real estate or something like that, but obviously the bulk of the international money has been coming here in the resource development area. So whether that's international and national companies that are investing heavily in Saskatchewan's oil patch, or those who are investing in the potash industry, for example. You got 8 or 10 billion going in that, here and there from international companies. Obviously, that makes a big difference, and it is global money that's coming in.
And that's exciting, I find, to be in that place, because, like you say, just a few short years ago, and I mean 10 is a short period of time, we were like the underdog of Canada, right? And now it just seems like there's a lot of recognition from around the world for what we have available for investment.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And underdog's a good description, and I like to say undervalued, that we did not have an environment here that was hospitable or attractive to investors. As a consequence, they stayed away, and our primary assets were undervalued as a consequence, because nobody wanted to buy them, so we just kept lowering the price. That turned around about 10 years ago. I attribute a lot of that to the initiative of the Saskatchewan Chamber, something called Action Saskatchewan, which began about the year 2000 and was a 2000 to 2005 initiative. It was really centered around attitude adjustment, taking a look at our attitude and saying, in 2005, Saskatchewan was going to turn 100 years old, and the Chamber challenged particularly the business community to say, all right, we're through one century. What do we want to do in the second century? And it became one of attitude, that was very attitudinal in nature, and that if we didn't have confidence in the place, then nobody else was going to. And it started to turn attitudes towards, let's stop trying to keep investment out and start to attract it in. And the difference has been huge. We've gone from $7 billion a year in annual investment to now over $20 billion for the last 3 years. Well, you can't put that kind of money into an economy without changing it. And it's changed.
It really has. It really has. What do you see? How much immigration do you think we've had over the last 10 years?
Yeah, we've added about 15% of the population, somewhere in that neighborhood, 120,000 people, and virtually all of that has been immigration. We get on average about 12 to 13,000 people a year coming from another country to Saskatchewan. And, this was a long time since we'd seen that kind of stuff, like since the province was first opened in like 1905 to 1920, we saw that kind of immigration, and we went a whole century without it. Now it's back. But if you think about it this way, it's about the equivalent of adding a new Estevan or a Swift Current every year to the province, and they're all coming from another country.
I know, that's amazing. Years ago, you'd hardly ever see new Canadians around. It was different. We were so stagnant. Even our young people were leaving.
Oh, they weren't just leaving; they were leaving in droves. And there were jokes that turned out to light when you're the last guy to leave and that sort of stuff. But really, where the frustration, and this was this attitude piece I was talking about earlier, where the frustration and attitude changes started to come was when people said, "I am tired of driving to Calgary to see my grandkids." Now, it was great for the Rough Riders because we had our 9 home games plus 9 neutral site games because we had more Rider fans in the stands in most of those cities than they had theirs. But it also is a sad commentary, is that, and it was one of the things that the Chamber's initiative, this Action Saskatchewan thing, put on the agenda was let's count population as a measure of economic success. There were many, particularly academics, who thought that was a kind of a foolish metric, but the Chamber's view was that said, if people are leaving, you're doing something wrong. If people are moving in, you've got something going right. And the measure of population transformation, whether they were leaving or coming, became one of those things that we could hang our hat on that say, hey, we've got success going on here. Success breeds success. But at the end of the day, in the economic development world, people follow opportunity. And if there is no opportunity in a jurisdiction, they will leave. If there is opportunity, they will come. We saw it happen.
Yeah. So going forward, what do you think is going to happen in Saskatchewan over, say, the next 5 years? Do you see massive growth?
I don't know how massive is, but there will continue to be growth, and I think we're still underdeveloped, and there is an awful lot of opportunity here, and I think you're going to continue to see investment come in. And when you see investment, build a potash mine or something like that, there's an awful lot of attendant activity that goes on. Take a look at the north end of Regina, the north end of Saskatoon. You've seen so much construction and redevelopment. These are buildings that are housing companies that serve those big industries, the resource extraction industries, and to probably an equal or slightly lesser degree agriculture. And those are the 3 kind of drivers that push this place. It's food, fuel, and fertilizer, the 3 Fs, phrase that I coined in a column in Saskatchewan Business. And so the food being agriculture, the fuel being oil and gas and uranium, and the fertilizer being nitrogen and more particularly potash. Those are the big drivers. So we've got 3 legs under our stool as opposed to, look next door, they've got 1 with oil. And on the other side, Manitoba does have agriculture, but about a quarter of what we've got. We've got just a smidgen of oil. They've got energy and electricity, but that's difficult to export. And you look at Alberta, they've got agriculture, but about half of what we do. So Saskatchewan's uniquely positioned where our primary assets, food, fuel, and fertilizer, have come into line with global demand. And that's been the big change. The world wants what we have, and that's what's given us the lift.
Oh, I know. I totally see that. Do you follow the real estate market with what's happening? Some of our investors are feeling right now that we're a little bit higher vacancy rate than we've had, say, over the last 7-8 years. How do you see that changing over the next 5?
Well, it's been an interesting challenge because of this population growth. When you add 10 or 15% of the population, I look particularly first at the residential side. I mean, builders spent 10 years really being behind the curve trying to play catch-up. They weren't getting houses built as fast as the population was increasing. Well, in the last 8 to 10 months or 12 months, they finally caught up. So now we're going to see a little bit of a leveling out and much more normalizing, I think, something that's more sustainable, but it's not catch-up. This is sort of what the market will now consume. So that we got a little ahead of the curve, I think that's probably just to be expected, and that absorption will take care of the excess inventory that's around right now. But I don't see any end to where we need real estate development. It's going to continue, perhaps not at the pace we saw 5 years ago, but it's going to continue.
It has to, right? Because we're getting
absolutely, because the population's growing.
Yeah.
And you add more people, you need more retail, you need more support businesses, and it just all spins into if you have more people, you need more houses, then they do more shopping because we need bigger grocery stores and more malls, and then you need more law offices and accounting firms and all this sort of stuff. It all just spirals. The growth in population is a pretty powerful catalyst to making things happen.
It really, really is. Well, you know, Paul, this is so exciting. I can't wait to hear your whole commentary when we see you on the weekend, or next weekend, I guess. So thank you very much again for speaking to me today.